So we're getting closer and closer to the day where the first of the 8 OG heroes will living legend in Classic Constructed. And today I'm going to explain why that's a huge deal for Flesh and Blood. A huge shout out to our channel members for supporting what we do here. If you want to get involved with the channel and the Dice Commando community, please consider joining as a channel member. Remember, these videos are only possible with your support. You can show that support with a like, a subscribe, and by leaving us a comment and sharing your feedback. Community first, and go Commando. Hey there, my Flesh and Blood friends. Welcome back to Dice Commando and Go Again, a fabulous cast. And thanks so much for tuning in here on your Flesh and Blood Friday. And what a Flesh and Blood Friday at that, right? Because this, well, not today's as per se, but this weekend kicks off national season, which means lots of events across the globe. And to that point, a huge injection of Living Legend points. So what I wanted to do today was take this opportunity to kind of pause and look at a snapshot of where the heroes sit currently within the Living Legend points, how many they have, what that might look like with the points injections we get, talk about the points. And then, also to that point, we are nearing the place where some of the OG heroes could potentially get enough points to LL. And this would be the first of what I consider to be the OG heroes, by the way, are the original 8, right? Because to me, when I look at WTR and Arc, it kind of seems to me that they were developed. I mean, again, Arc was clearly off to the printers before the game had hit the shelves, right, for the most part. So those 8 heroes are really what I consider to be the 8 OGs, right, the ones that framed the game. And they were the only ones we had until we went into the first of the elemental heroes, or I should say of the talented heroes, with Monarch, okay? So let's go ahead and start by heading over to the Living Legend leaderboard. And what I do, or what I have here, is I have the 8 OGs that I was referring to. They're all highlighted there. You can see Dash. It's no secret. Everyone's well aware Dash is, little more than, what is that, 165 points away from Living Legend, and she's on the top there. But you've got Azalea, who's doing really, really well right now. Some points to go. So what are we looking at this season from National? So what I have up right now, just remember that the U.S. National Championship, this is after the recent points rebalance and change. U.S. Nats is worth 50 points, and all the other national championships are now just blanket worth 25 points apiece. Okay, so with that said, we have, you can see the events that are listed below, but there are 45 national events across the globe. And if you do quick math, carry the 1 and do the multiplication and all that, comes out to 1,150 Living Legend points available this season. Now, those certainly all aren't going to go to one hero. We're very, very aware of that. Seems like Singapore always brings Dash to the table, or brings points to Dash, whichever way. I guess you got to do both to do it. So again, we're going to see points come in for a large smattering of heroes. And then, of course, you have heroes with 0 points who, just came out. Well, maybe not 0 points, but are doing very, very, very well, who came into the meta, right? Zen seems to be very popular. Enigma seems super, super strong. So they're certainly going to get points as well, okay? But if you really look at Dash, it shouldn't be, in theory, that hard for her to take home, 165? That's, 15%-ish of the points. It's doable, right? Maybe, maybe not, but it's doable. Azalea certainly seems like a very good hero in a Zen heavy meta, but we'll see where that all flushes out, okay? But whether it be this season or not, it's really no surprise that at some point we are going to lose one of our OG heroes. And that's kind of what I wanted to spend the rest of today talking about, is the impact of that. I think is going to be pretty big, not to necessarily the game of Flesh and Blood, not necessarily to the meta. There are a couple things I think go in hand with that. But it's a big deal, I think, for the culture of Flesh and Blood to finally lose one of those first heroes, right? So, I mean, first off, just think about it top down. The game is going into its 5th year, not quite in its 5th year yet, right? In October, it'll be 5 years, right? But we're in the 5th year of Flesh and Blood. So we have some players who have been aligned to their heroes since that time. And we've seen heroes come and go through the Living Legends legality system, been released, they've LL'd out, but none of the original ones have, right? So you really have this constant foundational framework that has been here since the game, since ever. I mean, functionally ever. I know Arc wasn't there from day zero, but you get my point. You had this 8-wide foundation. Kano is in there, right? Could do very well, right? Kano has framed the existence of Kano, whether he's good in the meta or not, has framed how we have to respond to things, right? And sure, other wizards can come and stuff. I'm not saying it's irreparable. Not what I'm saying at all. But there's a culture-based thing right there, right? Of Kano, of Bravo, right? Being the always just go-to good if you don't know what to play type of deal. And out of that, I'm curious what happens to some of those enfranchised players. Now, let's be very clear about something. The percentage of players in Flesh and Blood who are the enfranchised ones since the beginning is increasingly smaller and smaller, not only because some are leaving, but also because the game is growing at just an incredibly awesome pace, right? So I'm not sitting here and saying, it's doom and gloom, because when Dash LLs, we're going to lose 40 million players. Not the case at all, right? And in fact, to the flip side of that argument, I would argue that there are likely very few players who have been here since the beginning who have not picked up another hero or 7 along the way, right? And have plenty of options. So I don't think it's about losing players or anything like that, but I do think that there's a cultural shift that will happen even at just an emotional level of having one of those original heroes not here anymore, right? And I think that's a major impact, whether as a competitive player you feel it or care. But I think culturally and maybe emotionally is not the right word, but I think to a certain degree it is, that we've now lost a piece of the fundamental portion that really formed this game. And to be fair, I think a lot of players would consider Crew to be, Crucible of War, to be fundamental to the game as well. And we've certainly lost heroes in the last Blitz season from that as well. Blitz is slightly different because we'd lost the OG heroes well before, so I don't think it carries the same weight there. But I think with CC, just with the duration and the mainstay that they have, I think it'll carry weight. Now, from a tactical standpoint, I do think that there are, if you go back to WTR, especially WTR, the weapons are really strong, right? Anothos comes to mind as being extremely strong. The Kodachis, what does the ninja class look like without Kodachis? What does the Mechanologist class look like without Teklo Pistol? I mean, to be fair, we got that answer in Bright Lights. Many people didn't like that answer, right? But losing Teklo Pistol and, with it the associated play lines, that's a big deal, right? Because Dash has always been there as kind of a control valve in certain metas. Big deal. Bravo being there with Anothos to do what he can do, big deal. Always having Kodachis in that concern, and sure, Zen doesn't use the Kodachis, I get it, but Fi was for a long time, right? Very fundamentally good weapon. I think the loss of those weapons, it's a big deal, right? The loss of, there can be other Bravos, there can be other versions of all these heroes, and there likely will be, but they won't play exactly the same way. And they likely won't get their same weapon back. And the game has been framed around that, has developed around that as always being mainstays. So I think it's very, very interesting to think about what that might look like, right? Whether it be Dash that goes, whether it be Azalea that goes, whether it be Kano that goes. What does the game look like without the OGs present? And what does the game feel like knowing that now we're playing with other versions of our OGs, right? Like Dash.io or something like that. So anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts below. First off, do you have any projections for if we lose Dash, if we lose Azalea, something like that? It'd be pretty hard, I think, to lose. I'll throw up the numbers again. I think it'd be pretty hard to lose Azalea this weekend, just with how many, or not this weekend, this season, with how many points she needs to get. Dash is very doable. The others probably not so much. But whether it be this season or the next one or the one after that, it's going to happen. And it's very interesting to think about. So let me know your projections, what your thoughts are below. Have a great Friday. Enjoy the streams from around the world. And go Commando.